My child, there are moments in life when someone makes a choice that feels small in the moment but later becomes one of the biggest regrets of their entire journey. Your soulmate may be living through that realization right now. There was a time when they stood at a crossroads between two paths. One path led toward something deep, something steady, something real with you. The other path led toward someone else. Someone who appeared exciting, someone who seemed easier, someone who offered something that looked appealing on the surface. And in that moment of confusion, distraction, or fear, your soulmate chose the other path. At the time, it may have seemed like the right decision to them. Sometimes people convince themselves that a new person will bring something they believe is missing. Sometimes they mistake novelty for compatibility, believing that a fresh connection will somehow be stronger simply because it feels different. But here is the hook you must understand: new does not always mean better, and excitement does not always mean love. Your soulmate may not have realized that when they made their decision. When they chose someone else over you, they may have believed they were moving toward something that would make them happier. The early stages of that new connection might have felt thrilling. There may have been attention, admiration, and the sense of discovery that comes when two people are still learning about each other. But early excitement has a way of hiding the deeper truths that only time can reveal. As days turned into weeks and weeks turned into months, the surface of that relationship may have begun to change. What once felt exciting may have started to feel ordinary. Conversations that once seemed interesting may have started to repeat themselves. The qualities that looked appealing at the beginning may have revealed their limitations. Because every relationship eventually moves beyond the stage of excitement and into the stage of reality. And reality is where true compatibility is tested. This is where your soulmate may have started noticing the difference between what they chose and what they left behind. Because the connection they had with you was not built on novelty alone. It was built on understanding. It was built on trust, patience, shared moments, and emotional depth. Those things do not always appear exciting in the beginning because they grow slowly. But over time they become the foundation that holds a relationship together when life becomes difficult or unpredictable. The person they chose instead may not have been able to offer the same depth. Perhaps the conversations never reached the level of honesty they once had with you. Perhaps the emotional support they expected was not there when they needed it most. Perhaps they realized that admiration from someone new is not the same as being truly understood by someone who knows your heart. And that is when the quiet realization may have begun forming inside them. Here is another hook you should remember: regret rarely appears immediately after a decision. At first people defend their choices. They tell themselves they made the right move. They focus on the excitement of the new relationship and ignore the memories of what they left behind. But regret grows slowly, often appearing in the quiet moments when distractions disappear. Your soulmate may now be experiencing those quiet moments. They may find themselves thinking about you unexpectedly. Perhaps a place reminds them of a memory you shared. Perhaps a song reminds them of a conversation you once had. Perhaps they remember the way you listened when they spoke about something important to them. And with each memory, the comparison between what they have now and what they lost may become clearer. They may begin to see that what you offered them was not something ordinary. When you were in their life, your loyalty may have felt natural to them, something they assumed would always be there. But once it disappears, its value becomes impossible to ignore. They may remember how you supported them when they faced challenges. They may remember how you believed in their potential even when they doubted themselves. They may remember the quiet comfort of knowing that someone genuinely cared about their happiness. Those memories can be powerful because they highlight something the new relationship may be lacking. Because while attention from someone new can feel flattering, it does not automatically create the kind of emotional safety that real love provides. Love is not just about excitement or attraction. It is about the feeling of being understood without needing to explain yourself constantly. It is about knowing that the person beside you sees your strengths and your flaws and chooses to stay anyway. And this is where your soulmate may be realizing the magnitude of their mistake. Because the person they chose may not have been able to provide that kind of connection. The more time they spend in that relationship, the more they may notice what is missing. They may realize that conversations feel shallow compared to the ones they had with you. They may realize that emotional support is inconsistent. They may even realize that the chemistry they thought was so powerful at the beginning was only temporary excitement rather than lasting compatibility. When these realizations begin to appear, regret can grow quickly. Because once someone sees clearly what they lost, they cannot unsee it. Your soulmate may now be replaying the past in their mind, wondering what might have happened if they had chosen differently. They may imagine the life they could have built with you if they had stayed and invested their energy into the connection you shared. They may think about how things might look now if they had appreciated your presence instead of assuming it would always remain available. But regret carries a painful truth with it. Realizing a mistake does not automatically give someone the chance to correct it. Time continues moving forward whether someone regrets their past choices or not. While they were exploring a new relationship, your life may have been changing as well. At first, losing them may have hurt deeply. You may have questioned whether you were enough. You may have wondered why someone who once seemed so close could suddenly choose someone else. But pain often leads to growth when we allow ourselves to learn from it. Over time you may have started seeing the situation differently. You may have realized that someone who chooses novelty over loyalty may not have been ready to appreciate the kind of love you were offering. And once you understand that truth, your focus begins to shift. Instead of waiting for someone who left, you begin rebuilding your life around your own happiness and self-respect. This is where the story becomes even more complicated for your soulmate. Because if they now see you becoming stronger, more confident, and more independent, it may intensify their regret even further. They may realize that the person they lost was not just someone who loved them but someone who could have built something meaningful with them if they had only chosen differently. Your soulmate may now be standing in a place where the truth is impossible to ignore. They chose someone else believing it would bring them happiness. But that decision may have cost them something far more valuable than they understood at the time. And as this realization grows inside them, they may begin wondering whether the connection they once had with you can ever be recovered, or whether their choice changed everything forever. My child. When someone realizes they made a mistake choosing someone else over a person who truly cared for them, the realization rarely arrives suddenly like lightning striking the sky. Instead it grows slowly, quietly, almost painfully, because the heart begins to compare the life they imagined with the life they are actually living now, and in that comparison the truth becomes impossible to hide. At first your soulmate may have defended their decision strongly, convincing themselves that choosing someone else was the right step, that the excitement they felt with the new person meant the connection was meant to be, and that walking away from you was simply part of moving forward in life. Many people do this when they are uncertain inside themselves. They tell themselves stories that make their choices seem logical so they do not have to confront the uncomfortable possibility that they may have walked away from something rare. But time has a way of dissolving those stories. The excitement of a new relationship fades once the early stage of curiosity passes, and when that happens, reality begins to appear more clearly. Your soulmate may now be noticing things they never paid attention to before. The conversations they once thought were exciting may now feel repetitive or shallow. The person they chose might not understand them in the way you once did. They might notice that emotional support is inconsistent, that the comfort they once felt when speaking to you is missing, and that the connection they believed would grow stronger has instead become something uncertain or fragile. This is where regret begins to form, because the mind starts looking backward while the heart starts comparing. And comparison is powerful. Your soulmate may now remember the way you listened when they spoke about their fears, the way you encouraged them when they doubted themselves, the way you stayed even during moments when things were not perfect. Those memories might return unexpectedly during quiet moments when they are alone with their thoughts. A certain place might remind them of a conversation you once shared there. A song might remind them of a time when you both laughed without any worries about the future. Even something small, like a phrase you used to say or the way you reacted to their jokes, might suddenly appear in their mind like a memory that refuses to fade. And here is the hook you must understand: memories gain value when the person who created them is no longer present. When you were part of their everyday life, your presence may have felt normal to them, something they believed would always remain available. But once they walked away, those ordinary moments slowly transformed into something meaningful in hindsight. The patience you showed, the loyalty you offered, and the emotional safety you created in their life may now stand out in ways they never noticed before. And as these memories grow stronger, the comparison between you and the person they chose may become impossible to ignore. They may begin to see that the excitement they chased was temporary while the connection they left behind had depth. They may realize that admiration from someone new is not the same as being truly understood by someone who has seen both your strengths and your weaknesses. This realization can create a powerful emotional conflict inside them. Because while they may now understand the mistake they made, they are also aware that the past cannot simply be undone. They cannot travel back to the moment when they chose someone else and change their decision. Time only moves forward, and every choice carries consequences that shape the path ahead. Your soulmate may now be asking themselves difficult questions they never considered before. Why did I walk away from someone who genuinely cared about me? Why did I believe that a new connection would automatically be better than the one I already had? Why did I assume that the person I left behind would always be there if I ever changed my mind? These questions can be painful because they force someone to confront the reality that their own actions created the loss they are now experiencing. At the same time, they may also be noticing changes in you that make their regret even deeper. When they left, you may have been someone who loved them deeply and openly. You may have been emotionally invested in building a future together, believing that the bond you shared had the potential to grow into something lasting. But heartbreak has a way of transforming people. The pain you felt after they chose someone else may have forced you to reflect on your own worth and your own boundaries. You may have spent long nights questioning why someone you cared about so much could choose someone else over you. Those questions may have hurt at first, but over time they may have helped you see something important about yourself. You may have realized that someone who truly values you would never need to choose between you and another person in the first place. That realization can change the way you approach relationships. Instead of waiting for someone who once left, you may have started focusing on rebuilding your life around your own happiness. You may have developed new goals, new friendships, and new sources of strength that did not exist when your world revolved around the connection you shared with them. This growth may be visible now, and your soulmate may notice it even if they do not say it aloud. They may see confidence in you that was not there before. They may see independence where there was once vulnerability. They may realize that the person they lost has continued growing without them. And this is another hook in the story, because regret becomes even stronger when someone realizes that the person they left behind has become someone they now admire even more. They may now see you as someone who could have been an incredible partner if they had simply chosen to stay and nurture the connection you shared. But instead of building something meaningful with you, they allowed uncertainty or distraction to guide their decision. And now they must live with the knowledge that the opportunity they once had may never return in the same form again. Because while they were exploring a new relationship, you were learning how to value yourself in ways that make it difficult to return to the past. The version of you that existed when they left may not exist anymore. You may have developed boundaries that protect your emotional well-being. You may have learned that your love is something valuable that should never be given to someone who sees it as an option rather than a priority. And this realization creates a turning point in the story. Because your soulmate may now be standing at a distance, realizing that the connection they once walked away from was something meaningful, something they should have protected rather than replaced. They may wish they could return to the moment when everything was still possible, when the path that led toward you was still open and waiting. But regret has a cruel truth hidden inside it. Understanding the value of something does not always mean you get the chance to have it again. Sometimes regret exists only to teach someone what they failed to see when it mattered most. My child, as time continues to move forward, the weight of a mistake often grows heavier rather than lighter, especially when that mistake involved walking away from someone who truly cared. Your soulmate may now be living in a stage where regret is no longer just a passing thought but a constant presence that appears in quiet moments, in memories that return unexpectedly, and in comparisons that they can no longer avoid. At the beginning, when they chose someone else, the decision may have felt exciting or even justified. New relationships often carry a spark of novelty that can make everything seem brighter than it truly is. There may have been admiration, attention, and the sense of discovery that comes when two people are still learning about each other. In that stage, it is easy for someone to believe they have made the right choice. But the early stage of a relationship is rarely where its true nature is revealed. Real compatibility appears only after time has removed the excitement of the beginning and replaced it with everyday life. And this is where your soulmate may now be noticing the difference between what they chose and what they left behind. The person they chose may not understand them in the same way you once did. Conversations may feel different, perhaps more superficial or less emotionally honest. The comfort they once felt when speaking with you about their thoughts and struggles may be missing now. They may realize that while the new person offers companionship, the depth of emotional connection they once shared with you is difficult to recreate. Here is the hook that many people discover too late: chemistry can appear quickly, but true emotional compatibility takes time to build, and once it is lost it cannot easily be replaced. Your soulmate may now be noticing how rare the connection with you actually was. They may remember the way you listened when they spoke about their worries. They may remember the patience you showed when they were uncertain about their own path in life. They may remember the feeling of being understood without needing to explain every part of themselves. These memories often appear when someone least expects them. Perhaps they see something that reminds them of you, a place you once visited together or a habit you used to have. Perhaps they hear a phrase that sounds like something you once said during a conversation that mattered. And in those moments, the comparison between their present and their past becomes clearer. Because what they have now may not feel the same. It may feel easier on the surface but less meaningful underneath. And that contrast can create a powerful sense of regret that grows stronger over time. Your soulmate may now be asking themselves questions that are difficult to answer. Why did I believe that something new would automatically be better than something real? Why did I assume that the connection I had with you would always remain available? Why did I not recognize the value of your presence until it was gone? These questions can stay in someone's mind for a long time because they are rooted in the painful awareness that a different choice might have created a completely different future. They may imagine what their life would look like now if they had chosen you instead. They may imagine the conversations you would still be having, the support you would still be giving, and the stability that might have grown between you over time. But imagination cannot rewrite reality. The past remains fixed no matter how much someone wishes they could change it. And that truth can be difficult for your soulmate to accept. At the same time, they may also notice that your life has continued evolving without them. When they left, you may have been deeply hurt. The pain of being replaced can feel overwhelming, especially when it comes from someone you trusted. You may have spent days or weeks wondering why they made that decision, questioning whether you could have done something differently to make them stay. Those feelings are natural when someone you care about chooses someone else. But pain also has the power to transform into clarity if we allow ourselves to learn from it. Over time, you may have begun to see the situation from a different perspective. You may have realized that someone who truly values you would never treat you as an option. You may have understood that the love you offered was something meaningful and that it deserved to be recognized rather than overlooked. And once you reach that realization, something inside you begins to change. Instead of focusing on the person who walked away, you begin focusing on your own growth. You start rebuilding your confidence, reconnecting with parts of yourself that may have been neglected while your attention was invested in the relationship. You begin creating a life that does not depend on someone else's choices. This transformation can be powerful because it changes the way you see both yourself and the past. The connection you once shared with your soulmate may remain an important memory, but it no longer defines your future. And this change may be visible to them now. They may see that you have grown stronger and more independent since the moment they left. They may notice that your life continues moving forward in ways that do not revolve around their presence anymore. And this realization can intensify their regret because it shows them something they did not fully understand before, the person they lost was someone capable of building a meaningful future with them if they had simply chosen to stay. Here is another important hook in the story. Regret becomes most painful when someone realizes that the opportunity they lost cannot easily be recreated. Your soulmate may now see clearly what they walked away from. They may recognize that the emotional safety, loyalty, and understanding you offered are not qualities that appear in every relationship. They may understand that you were not just someone who cared about them but someone who believed in the connection you shared and was willing to nurture it over time. But even with this realization, they may also be aware that the door they once closed cannot automatically reopen. Because while they were exploring a different path, you were learning to value yourself more deeply. You were discovering that your love is something rare, something that should be given to someone who recognizes it without needing to lose it first. Your soulmate may now be standing in a place where they understand their mistake clearly, yet they also see that the future they imagined with you may no longer be within reach. And that awareness can stay with someone for a long time. Regret does not disappear easily when it is connected to the loss of someone who truly cared. It remains as a reminder of the moment when a different choice could have changed everything. For you, however, this stage of the story carries a different meaning. It is not about waiting for someone to regret losing you. It is about recognizing the strength you gained after realizing that your worth does not depend on whether someone else understands it in time. The love you offered was real. The loyalty you showed was genuine. And the growth you experienced after they walked away proves that your future is not limited by the mistakes someone else made. Your soulmate may now understand that they lost something meaningful when they chose someone else. But the most important truth is that you discovered something even more powerful in the process. You discovered your own value, and once someone truly understands that, they never allow themselves to be treated as a second choice again. My child, when a story like this reaches its final stages, something very powerful begins to happen, not only inside the person who made the mistake but also inside the person who was once left behind. By now your soulmate may be standing in a place where the truth can no longer be hidden from them. The excitement that once surrounded the person they chose may have faded completely, leaving behind the quiet reality of what that relationship truly is. In the beginning they may have believed they were following their heart, convinced that the new connection offered something special, something that would bring them happiness or fulfillment that they thought was missing before. But time has a way of removing illusions. What once felt exciting may now feel ordinary. The person they chose may not understand them in the same way you once did. Conversations may feel shallow where yours once felt meaningful. Emotional support may be inconsistent where yours was steady and reliable. And when someone begins to see those differences clearly, regret often becomes impossible to ignore. Your soulmate may now be looking back at the time when you were still part of their life and seeing those memories in a completely different light. When you were there, your presence may have felt familiar, something they assumed would remain available whenever they needed it. But familiarity can make people blind to value. When something good becomes part of everyday life, it is easy to forget how rare it actually is. Only after it disappears do people begin to see what they once had. Your soulmate may now remember the way you listened when they spoke about their fears, the way you supported them when they faced difficulties, and the way you celebrated their successes as if they were your own. Those moments may seem small when they happen, but they are the foundation of real love. And once someone experiences life without that kind of support, they often realize how important it truly was. Here is the hook you must understand. The human heart often recognizes the value of something only after it is gone. Your soulmate may now see clearly that the connection they had with you was not something ordinary. It was something that had the potential to grow into something lasting if they had simply chosen to protect it rather than replace it. They may now compare the emotional depth they once shared with you to the relationship they are in now. Perhaps they notice that the new person does not understand their dreams the way you did. Perhaps they realize that the emotional safety they once felt with you cannot be recreated easily with someone else. These realizations can be painful because they reveal the magnitude of the choice they made. But regret carries another painful truth with it as well. Realizing a mistake does not automatically give someone the chance to correct it. Time continues moving forward whether someone regrets their choices or not. While your soulmate was exploring a different relationship, your life was moving forward as well. When they first left, you may have experienced heartbreak that felt overwhelming. Being replaced by someone else can make a person question their own worth, especially when they once believed the connection they shared was strong and meaningful. You may have spent many moments wondering why they made that decision and whether there was something you could have done differently. But pain, when faced honestly, often becomes the beginning of personal transformation. Over time you may have begun to see the situation differently. You may have realized that someone who truly values you would never need to choose between you and another person. Real love does not hesitate when it recognizes something meaningful. Once you understand that truth, your perspective begins to change. Instead of waiting for someone who walked away, you begin focusing on your own growth and happiness. You begin rebuilding your life in ways that strengthen your confidence and independence. You start rediscovering the parts of yourself that may have been overshadowed by the relationship. This process can take time, but it often leads to a powerful realization: your value was never dependent on their decision. And this realization is something your soulmate may now see when they look at you from a distance. They may notice that you have become stronger, more confident, and more self-aware since the moment they left. They may see that you are no longer waiting for them in the way you once did. This transformation can intensify their regret because it highlights something they failed to recognize before. The person they walked away from was not just someone who loved them deeply but someone capable of building a meaningful future with them. And now they must live with the knowledge that they chose a different path. Your soulmate may now find themselves wondering whether the connection they lost can ever be restored. They may think about reaching out to you, about explaining what they have realized and how their perspective has changed. They may want to tell you that they finally understand the difference between temporary attraction and real emotional connection. But even if they feel this desire, they may also feel uncertainty about how you would respond. Because the version of you that existed when they left may no longer exist today. The person who once waited for their attention may now value themselves too much to return to a relationship that once treated them as an option. And that possibility can be difficult for your soulmate to accept. Because regret becomes even more painful when someone realizes that the opportunity they lost may never appear again in the same form. They may wish they could return to the moment when they made their decision and choose differently. They may imagine how their life would look now if they had stayed with you instead of pursuing someone else. But the past cannot be rewritten. It can only be understood. And sometimes the lessons people learn from their mistakes arrive only after the moment when those lessons could have changed everything. For you, however, the meaning of this stage is not about their regret. It is about the clarity you gained through the experience. You have seen what happens when someone fails to recognize your value. You have learned that your love is something meaningful that should never be treated as a backup option. And once you understand that truth, you begin approaching relationships differently. You begin choosing people who recognize your worth without needing to lose you first. Your soulmate may now understand that they made a mistake choosing someone else. They may carry that realization with them for a long time. But the most important part of this story is not their regret. It is the strength you discovered when you realized that your value never depended on whether they appreciated it in time. The love you offered was real, the loyalty you showed was genuine, and the growth you achieved after they walked away proves something powerful. You are someone who deserves to be chosen fully, not someone who should ever be treated as a second option in someone else's life.